Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the Creativity Conference's official podcast. Today I am joined by Dr Stefania Romano, who is an auto-ethnographer, a creative entrepreneurship scholar who studies how individuals interpret creative processes via time and space, and is currently based at the University of Leeds. Stefania, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you, Aidan. I'm fine, thank you. It's very nice to be here with you today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. What creative projects are you currently working on that you're sort of excited to get up in the morning and work on?
So at the moment, I'm an academic, and in the evening I transform myself into artist, and I try to work on concertina books and storytelling. And one of my colleagues from Sweden asked me, "Oh, can you write about what do you do with the students to kind of extract storytelling and visual images?" So that's what I've been doing at the moment. I'm quite very excited about. So I try to facilitate with creative techniques storytelling for students, especially the ones that are international students, but also the national students who tend to be shy, or maybe they have some, I like to call it learning specialities, something like that. Because in a kind of formal environment, people might be very shy, so they don't want to express themselves. So while I want that they learn from each other, at the same time they learn something about themselves to become self-aware of. And this is the
Amazing.
project. So I did a workshop with some of them, and I collected their stories, and they shared. So I'm going to write about it, and also to help other colleagues like me who can use creative techniques in very formal settings, especially for the youth.
Amazing. And you also do some like bookbinding and collage stuff, right? Is this all sort of coming together?
Yeah, that's it, exactly. So there is a lot of sustainable behaviors. So I try to recycle paper. For example, when I bind my books, my notebooks, there's always a piece of paper that you can't use it. So I try to collect and create collage pack. And I bring magazines in the workshop, collage pack. I go in Italy, for example, when you go to a restaurant, they have on the rather than having tablecloth, they have this paper, fantastic paper, and I always take those paper. I mean, it's like, how can we reuse material rather than waste completely? Because I've been using it, and then I create small pieces. I bring to the workshop, and the students, they try to create meaning, they try to choose the colors, they try to kind of ask them, okay, just split up in different pieces, connect with yourself in a very mindful process, and try to use your imagination. That's the storytelling, because we've been indoctrinated by, background, education, that we are in a society that has got a lot of expectations on us, and and it's part of the game. But sometimes the best talented people cannot express themselves in particular settings. And by doing this exercise, you will not change dramatically, but you become aware that actually you are able to tell and interpret a story, and you see like, oh wow, I can do things. So you kind of reduce the stereotypes, the stigma with within ourselves, and you start to see the world from a different perspective. That's what really excited me. And
Yeah.
obviously, I've got 15 years experience, so you always need to be careful of the audience, because we have a lot of emotions. I remember one day in another workshop, I'm a Lego serious play facilitator. And, there was this assumption that everybody loves Lego. I mean, I assumed And there was this high profile senior academic. She started in front of everybody say, I hate. And I thought, oh, so probably there was some, emotional connection. And obviously in front of, mature people, there were 30 people having this strong opinion about something. It was very painful for her. So in that case, you kind of say, okay, this probably is not applicable for you at the moment. So creativity is great, but you also need to understand when you need to have some boundaries and step back, because not everybody is able to connect with themselves in particular settings.
Right, but there still is a big value in bringing a sense of play to a traditional academic environment, right?
Absolutely, I'm fond of this. I'm a great believer, and yes, 100%. But also there is an emotional. I think emotional time. That's what I like to call. So people like to play, but if you had a traumatic experience with play during your childhood, and obviously we don't share those things, so as a facilitator is my role that everybody gets something. And I remember that day the lady couldn't cope, and she went out, she went back, and she started to maneuver and say, oh, this is not good, or this is not. And I say, okay, no, that's enough, because other people want to play, other people want to engage. So there is a space for everybody. And this was a massive learning for me to protect, because yes, there is a lot of play, there's a lot of connection, but creativity is very complex, I would say. Sternberg suggested in his, I think it's Handbook of Creativity, that creativity is very complex. So there are different multidisciplinary approaches to it. I love the playfulness. I love the play. I'm the one that play before the other. So, I start to do before entering in this formal setting. Oh, there's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of me playing, considering, forecasting probabilities, consider learning styles, consider these computer labs, and, try to bring in imaginations in those settings. It's really powerful, but there's a lot of preparation. I would say.
And also a lot of movement. I think you've said previously that movement is a really big key to the practice that you do.
Yes. So there's a famous book that I can't pronounce the name. It's about flow. That's the book. So it's Cheese Zeb Bill High. It's probably very famous. This book is something that tells that creativity is a flow. It is a flow. It's absolutely a flow. Now, where is the flow? Where it starts, where it ends? So it's from left to right, north to east, west and south, where the flow is. It's movement. It has been demonstrated that a lot of creative, highly talented people, like dancers, the creativity is like energy. So that's why the movement has to kind of go somewhere. And I think I've read the story of the choreographer of Cats, that the mother thought, oh, my daughter has got some illness. She can't stay in the school. So they went to the doctor, say, oh, she's probably, she's not capable. And the doctor was so smart and said, there's nothing wrong. She's a ballerina. And I think this is important, because there's energy, there's movement. It's like DJs who want to listen to music, who wants to produce the music, is flow of different sort of energies. Painters is a flow of colors, and especially watercolorists, they want to play with the water. It's a flow, and it's very, very personal. That's why, but there's something fascinating about this flow and this individuality of the flow. Art and science are very important. They are equally important. Now, the scientists, they try to solve the problem and ended up to one solution by using different methodologies. That's it. The artists, they do exactly the same, but they don't look at the same solution because the artists use different methodologies. Now, the artists and creatives, I would say the creative more than artists, because sometimes artists are not necessarily creative. And I will explain you in a second. The creative, they want to create memories and interpret the process for the solution. So that's why the scientists, they love this publishing, they love to show up, they need the numbers, they need the metrics, but they forget that an artist in a community, in a community of artists, they probably go beyond. I mean, when I spend time with economists, I have to say, I really fancy economists because they're so bright. Then when I start to get in my creative movement, I get curious because that's my nature. And I say, oh gosh, no, this is not possible. Why not? I mean, why not? So there's a balance. But again, as creative personalities, this flow, this movement is vital. It's vital. I was telling before that many artists are not creative because they tend to become more commercial. So there's a difference between, yes, an artist who is creative, wants to explore this individuality, this interpretation of the world, and artists who decided, okay, I want to be more commercial, and obviously there's a balance. There's another important book written by Richard Caves from Harvard University, and the book was called Creative Industries. In the creative industries, so film industry, music industry, fashion industry, all this industry, there's a massive dilemma. Art for art's sake or art for the kind of businesses. And that's the problem of creatives. So we are like in between. So some people will decide, okay, no, I want to be more arty, art for art's sake. And other people, in terms of another sort of movement, say, no, maybe I want to be more commercial. And this is why, for example, in some industries, there is an agent. There is an agent, a facilitator that facilitates this massive bipolar extremes orientations.
I imagine this is stuff that you've developed over the years of working in this field, but were you taught any of this in school, or was your upbringing very creatively fulfilling, or did you have to develop this outside of your schooling?
In Italy, when I studied in high school, there was a lot of art history. It wasn't like that. I think something just kicked very strongly when I was 30. And was the moment when I started to connect deeply with creativity. I mean, my dad is a musician. So I was always, surrounded by musicians. My mom, she was very artistic. My sister, she studied what's called art school. So I was surrounded by all the artists. And actually, there was an assumption that I wasn't artistic at all, because the only thing I wanted to do was to draw geometric art. This was always like secret geometry. This is something I always master, and this is not really conventional. I was very good with numbers, very good, extremely good. And they decided, okay, I was very wild. So my parents decided it was good for me to go to school and to choose management at university. But to be honest with you, I didn't. I remember when I was a child, I was very energetic, and now I think I had some leadership skills, because I used to punch boys' faces if they didn't respect me, or I didn't, I had these kind of behaviors. I got bored because I used to speed up something, and the school wasn't like that. So when I arrived at university, I studied management. I was pretty good. I had a job, but then something happened in my life when I was 30, and I had a strong illness, and the only thing that actually rescued me was my sister with a book of Monet. And this is probably was the moment when creativity entered in my life, and it was very serious for me. So I didn't want to leave at that time, and my sister brought me the book of Monet, and she asked me, please turn the page, just do it for me. And obviously I didn't do it. I didn't do the day after, but after 1 week, I turned the page and I thought there was something. And slowly, I enter in this creative world. And that's why I'm annoyed sometimes, because it's serious for me. It's like artists, creatives are serious people. When people think, oh, creativity is fun, no, it's a serious thing. It can be fun as well, obviously. There's an element of it. But if you do professionally, it's like a reason to leave. And I think that's what entered. Then I started to do my PhD. And then I started to kind of find meaning. I was very curious, so I kind of translate this. I would argue that creativity arrived in my life at an early age, in the sense that I was surrounded by people who were very creative. But the moment that I started to engage deeply with my inner self was very late.
What was so special about that book and what it said in it that was so revolutionary for you?
No, it was just a painting, sunrise.
Okay, so it was Monet the painter, and it was a book of that.
Looking at that, and one of the best moments of my life was that after 10 years, I was looking at that page, and then after 10 years, I brought my sister to Amsterdam, and there's a picture of me, and behind me, there's the painting. So it's just about an image that means a lot. It does means a lot to me, and that's why I love particular colors. I love the sun. I love the sunrise.
And so, looking ahead into the future, into the crystal ball, 20 years in the future, how, as a creative, how do you see yourself in the future? How would you like to mature as a creative over the next 20 years?
I like to believe that at time and space matters. So these 20 years, I like to split up, like what I'm going to do in the next 2 years, what I can achieve in the next 2 years, and then maybe 10, and then maybe 20. I definitely bring the sunrise already in my teaching practice. And it's a challenge when you bring creativity in business schools. It's a massive challenge. I always do, and I love doing it. Now, I don't know if the setting is going to be the same, because life can change, isn't it? I've been working not only with younger students. I work with executives. I've been working with people in the fashion industry, with entrepreneurs, and it's the same principle: using your techniques, your knowledge, apply this, and help people to figure it out something. So in the next 20 years, I would love to write more, because I've got so much knowledge that it will be good to share. I get excited about examples of women and the creativity of women. The book I mentioned before, Creativity, it was an interview of 91 artists, tend to be mainly men.
Right.
So it's good, it's interesting, but I wonder, there are a lot of female artists. There were a lot of female artists. There was a fantastic photographer, I don't remember now her name. apparently she became famous when she passed away. She used to be a babysitter, and she took a lot of photos and photos and photos in America. And then after she passed away, people figured it out, found her photographs. So in the next 20 years, I want to bring another sort of movement. It doesn't mean to be, I don't like when people in society want to destroy and rebuild. I think it's good, it's the stepping stones. My stepping stones will be starting with the male contributions, starting with the male artist, and try to investigate what's going on. I mean, there was a recent article from the BBC. They were talking about the stepdaughter of Monet. One of his stepdaughter actually contributed, identify Monet as the mentor, and she was a prolific artist, and we don't know. Now, the thing is, it is important for women and men. Creativity for me is not only a wake-up call, it's energy. It's masculine energy and feminine energy. It's not necessarily how people, it's not sexual preferences. It's not that. It's a balance of energies, right? So by reading this article from the BBC, they mentioned, Blanche Ochet de Monet, and what she did. She didn't change her style to be loyal to her mentor. It's fascinating. Means that, wait a minute, there were men who were supportive with women. There's a lot of history that actually is about collegiality. There are roles, but connections. And in the next 20 years, I want to bring those connections, because one of the powerful moments in my teachings is I've learned from different students how they can connect. We seem different, but we're not really completely different sometimes.
And also because you work a lot with students, the space is evolving so fast. And over the next, obviously 20 years, less than that, a lot of the students who I imagine you're teaching now are getting prepared for jobs that don't even exist yet. How are you managing to balance preparing them for a future that in the creative industries that we don't really know that exists?
That's a very good question. I'm so pleased you asked. That's absolutely true. I try to plant a seed. I never ever thought I've got students in front of me. I always think they are the future. That's why it doesn't matter to create connection and collegiality. Because whatever we do, like in the next year, it might be a massive crisis. It might be not. It might be. So what I'm going to bring with me, the only thing I can bring with me is the experience. It's about memories. It's about what I'm able to do. Especially in the creative industries. I'm a great supporter of the creative industries. But crisis is learning. So whatever we do is this kind of movement, okay? In innovation, there is assumption that we put a lot of input and then we have the outcome. No, it's this input and output is like the flow of creativity. Then there are failures, but the failures, they don't mean anything if there is no learning. So whatever we have learned, so in the previous crisis, and I don't want to use a particular terminology because could have some negative connotation for some people. But in the previous crisis, some people actually boost. They were probably, they lost their jobs, so they have to survive. A lot of people become entrepreneurs. A lot of people fall in love again with their partners. I mean, actually, it was demonstrated that a lot of good relationship between the father and the children was happening in that crisis. So in the future, remember, crises always exist. Centuries and centuries always exist. Crisis is part of us, okay? Part of us is the learning from the crisis. What did I learn about myself? And that's the thing about that's the problem about creatives. We try to interpret the world, and if we are emotionally unstable, we don't know what to do. That's why it really matters the community. In the community with the hierarchies, there are people with experience who probably tell you, well, that crisis already existed 15 years ago, 100 years ago. But then there was ways to solve and discover. The best innovations always happen in terms of crisis. I tell you this. Yes, I'm Italian. So can you imagine Italy? People don't know a lot about Italy, I will argue. In the last 400 years of craziness, of fight and wars in Italy, gosh, we had masterpieces. And it was this way. So get ready for the crisis and say, okay, obviously in the short term, it's a shock. It's like grieving, shock, I'm losing. Are you losing or are you winning something else? Because the crisis goes down. But then remember, there's a moment, and it could be 3 months, 3 years. I don't know. It's very personal. But then you remember, okay, the job that I always study, the job we study, we get trained for, is going to change. But what you can do is transfer your knowledge and expertise. Or if you're really young and people say, oh, young people, they don't have expertise. Oh, no, they're full of expertise. They master the technology. Everybody has got a life and a history. And remember, before we were born, there was another history. God knows where we're coming from. Therefore, there was a lot of crisis. Get ready. Get ready to be who you really want to be. And then there's that pressure in the society, like you can lose your job or you can lose your, status quo. Yes, you can, but maybe you can't. You never know. Because, and that's important in terms of time and space, time can change our interpretation of life. Space, there is a difference between London, Manchester, Edinburgh, or Belfast. There are differences. There are different cultures, but maybe your talent can be nurtured in another place, in another space, in another time. Okay, so first of all, assume that all our assumptions are probably wrong, 1 point, in a crisis. So if people tell you, oh, you lose your job, okay, your assumption, block your assumption and say, okay, I hear all of you, give me space. So try to have a rest to plan and remember which your expertise are and which you really want to learn. So retrain yourself, get some extra experiences. Third point I want to say is go back and read. We don't read the classics. We don't read the classics anymore. There is an image I always bring to my PhD students about Socrates. And I always bring this because they're my PhD students. So the idea is they develop critical thinking. And I bring that picture because he's reading a book. There's a book in the picture, in the center, there's a book. I ask them, okay, what do you see? And there's a Socrates with other people around him. And they always see the chain. Oh, he's in jail. No, there's a book. So it's our interpretation of the image, our interpretation of the word. If we focus on the chain, that is God and retain his feet, we can't move on. If we focus on the reading, on the books, on the imagination, well, whatever happened, we survive or we don't survive is up to us. And that's why we need a community. The community are important. The community we are in, who maybe are our community, or other communities that are not our community, and that's why we need some support, or we want to kind of connect with them. And this is how you shift into the different space. It's like, doing the podcast. This is a new thing for me. This is a new thing for me. And I was a little bit, I don't know what to do, but this is a new thing. So try to experience novelty. Obviously, try to feel comfortable. Don't be completely extreme. And if you are going to be extreme, okay, this is probably means you want to be and you want to learn something. So that would be my 3 advice. Perception, assumption, reduce the assumption. Assume that your assumptions are wrong. Try to recognize to yourself your skills and what is the best space and time for you. The crisis is a flow. It could be on this side, it could go on this side, could go on this side, could go whatever. What does matter is you maintain an emotional value to yourself.
And a lot of people, I think, have been describing artificial intelligence as a crisis to some certain creatives, because a lot of people feel under threat by AI and how it's going to completely take over everything that they do. And other people see it as a big opportunity. I think it would be remiss to not mention AI, at least briefly, and its potential impact on the creative industries in the future.
Dear creatives, technology has always existed and are always disrupted in one way or another. Now, there are some pioneers, so the people who start the innovation, who wants to engage technology, AI immediately. And it's kind of a personal choice. They want to do. And then there are the latecomers. Those are the two extreme, but there are more in the innovation terms. So the people who adopt and use AI immediately, they probably have more success, a commercial success, but they can go and enter into failure. Now, there are other people who observe and they try to imitate the use of AI. What is the interpretation? My personal view is when there is an overconsumption, the system will collapse in one way or another. And it's a personal choice. At the moment, for me, for my job, there's a lot of discussions about AI. I found that imbalance is always not completely valuable. So we need to have a balance. I want to learn a little bit more about AI. In some industries, maybe to implement processes, yes, why not? In other industries, especially the creatives, let me give you this example. And look, Aidan, I'm here because I want to give encouragement to everyone, especially the creatives, because they are in my heart more than anybody else. There was a performance at the Grammy. There was a performance, I don't remember the name, about this guy who was singing, who took off his clothes and he was singing and he was performing so beautiful. And you can see this guy who was really good, very talented. He's a fantastic performer or singer. Don't remember his name. Then I've seen another video or another performer, but this time he wasn't, he performed in front of his wife, and he's an American tech entrepreneur, okay, of an online platform without name anybody. He wanted to impress his wife, so he did a similar performance. So he went on the stage very differently, and he took off his clothes and he sang this song to his wife. Beautiful, beautiful. So creatives. It doesn't matter if people copy you or blah, blah, blah. These things always exist. Since Leonardo took some ideas from other people as well. Okay? Always existed. But the performance of that singer, gosh, it took my breath away. The performers, they always put something more. Is they soul connected with something more magical. So nobody will take anything from you. Creativity will find a way to move your talent in another direction. sometimes take time. For other people, it takes a couple of minutes. So it's very individual. That's why what Stenbeck said is a complex phenomenon. AI, not AI. I mean, that's fascinating. I've got an entrepreneur. She asked me, "Oh, Stefania, do a bit of research with this software." I said, "No, at the moment, I don't want. I want to double check if my research is better or different from the AI." Now, I've got 15 years of studying and testing and using, my teaching has been global. So obviously, I can bring information from a software, but my experience is definitely very difficult to be grasped in a software. And it's like the creative vibes, the interconnection you have been with other people, within your sector, with other sectors. There are a lot of fantastic stories, and they are unseen, unheard. And this is maybe the time for you to bring that idea that you wrote 20 years ago, that you just parked in a way, and go back to it and get another community or go back to your community. So AI is another technological change. For some industries, could be very beneficial. To other industries, probably not. To other industries can modify. In my educational industries, probably there are going to be a lot of changes. But it's fascinating when I speak and share my knowledge. There's no AI at this stage because it's the reason is that my connection is very difficult for an AI to map. Yes. And I'm not talking about connection in terms of publication. There are a lot of academics that have unpublished their work. And that's why it's through the connections. That's why all creatives, the experience you had at university, Aidan, can I map that? Probably a little bit, but not the whole of it. So that's what is my interpretation of AI at this stage. Honestly, there are people who fall in love with robots. Okay, if they're happy, let's do it. I mean, why not? I fall in love with humans. I mean, the reason is you tell a robot, come on, that's basic sense. You tell a robot to please you, and the robot please you. And you tell her, please me, and the robot please. But come on, the chemistry with another human and all the emotions about what I do or experiments, it go beyond any robots. And this is my view. I might be changing my view in 10 years' time. I might be not. I know that when people are together, there's not technology. Then there's an element of technology that's very supportive. And I'm really thankful for technology because it's a very good way to communicate, to reach different audiences. So I think the balance with that is fantastic. That's what I love to see. There are a lot of good perspectives for technology. I'm able to talk with my parents in another country. I'm able to learn from other people. The technology is great, but has to be contextualized. So AI, dear creatives, is another way of our learning in this life. That would be, don't take too much unless you want to become and actually, remember in the past, British, especially British, they always discover something fantastic. So be positive about. Own your talent.
Yeah, it's a very good point. It's not going to replace the one-to-one interaction between humans that is so special and is so hard to replicate through a machine, through an AI. So really taking advantage of that is very wise. We're coming up to time. I have one final question for you before we go, which I always ask at the end of every episode, which is, how do you define creativity, and what does creativity mean to you?
Yes, for me, creativity is a wake-up call. She gave me a kick when I didn't want to move on. But she's also very gentle and kind. So she's very understandable of my limits and my strengths. It's a language. I mean, the beauty of creative people, when I bring my creative friends from the UK to Italy, or from Italy to the UK, you see the magic between them. It goes beyond speak English or speak Italian, it goes beyond. It's just using their hands, connect with their ancestors. Ancestors will always protect everybody, especially if you have a good creative heart. Obviously, it's life, it's ups and downs, like a roller coaster. That's what creativity is. Sometimes it's also rest. It's rest from the madness to figure it out and interpret what does work for you. So again, I might be changed my mind about AI when I see a lot of benefits. And why not? At the moment, for me, this is work. So creativity is like food for our soul.
Amazing. Well, Stefania, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for listening. And I look forward to staying in touch and seeing what you do next.
Oh, thank you so much. The best of luck to everybody.